Hey everybody, my name is MetalMusicMan.
And I'm Professor Lex.
And this is podcast episode 13, which is
I believe
every
you.
time.
Yep,
It's real.
3 months. We're here.
It is once again Friday. I am once again doing nothing but playing World of Warcraft and petting my cat, and most recently playing Street Fighter 4 with you on the internet.
Hell yeah.
Not in real life.
Well, no, that would be irresponsible to play in real life.
I don't know.
We're
I'm at the point where, like, with a mask 6 feet away on the couch, I don't know if I would care at this point. I haven't done it.
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet, but like, I don't know. Hylian actually invited me over the other day, and I can't remember if I told you this or not, but he invited me over and was like, "I've never left my apartment. Do you want to play some Smash?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'll come play some Smash." But I work at a school, and they don't give a fuck about anything. And I've been at work, and he well, I mean, I've been off for 2 weeks currently, but like I've definitely been in and out.
Yeah, that's right.
And he gave me like,
you were on a sabbatical.
Yeah, this is actually my last day of vacation before I have to go.
Damn, I'm sorry.
Remember that I have a job again, which is fucking horrible. Another cool factoid, actually, today is the day I would be in Japan had COVID not struck. But that got canceled, which is why I took a bunch of PTO randomly. Anyway, long story short, Hylian gave me like the ellipsis and was like, maybe we'll wait a week. And I was like, yeah, I figured you wouldn't want to. I'm just a big bag of COVID, but But yeah, speaking of COVID and canceling plans and stuff, man, it's like, I don't know. I'm really like caught in a weird place because I live in stupid land where it's St. Charles and nobody gives a fuck about anything and everybody's just out doing stuff. They don't care. Nothing matters. On the one hand, there's that. On the other hand, it's like I do try to like quarantine and like do things, to for the most part, there's like
socially responsible. There's
like 2 people I've seen with any regularity since this whole thing has occurred. And even that's been way less regular. Like I used to see my buddy Wilson like once every week or every other week. And I've seen him like twice in the last like 3 months. So
I've seen Jeff all of like once, I think, since COVID started, which is uncomfortable, disquieting. Do not like.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
We usually hang out like 3 or 4 times a week.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah.
I had no idea you were married.
Guy. We are. Yeah. Well,
I do know that you're an extrovert, and you have all of your. Pharaoh and I often have in your little couples matchmaking that you set up once upon a time, trying to hook Pharaoh and I up with our weird introverted, opposite, complementary qualities. We were talking about something the other day about how like. Oh yeah, Lex, it was like when we were playing like Grand Blue or something, it was like, yeah, Lex should play Grand Blue more. And we both simultaneously were like, oh yeah, but Lex is always busy doing things. And we were like, yeah, what a weirdo that guy is. He has all these plans. Like Pharaoh's basically the same as me, except that like 2 or 3 times a day, we'll play WoW during COVID. We'll play WoW for like the entire fucking day most of the time. 2 or 3 times a day, he'll be like, I gotta go do some fucking push-ups or something. And I'm like, all right, man, like I'll see you later. And then he comes back like an hour later, and that's his whole.
I have done 100 push-ups. Yeah,
he's like, I've done nothing but push-ups for the last hour. I am ready to grind World of Warcraft again. I'm like, all right, welcome back to the fold, sir. I've been drinking profusely the last hour, so we've both gotten our workouts in. Anyway, yeah, you do things and are an extrovert. Which we know.
I really don't. I hang out with Jeff. I hang out with my girlfriend, and that's.
They're your main squeezes.
Yes.
I'm just a side bitch for you. I see how it is.
Well, for a while there, I was actually seeing you more than I was seeing Jeff.
Yeah, there was. We were doing when Smash Ultimate was new and COVID didn't exist and we could still play. You were coming over once or twice a week pretty regularly. That was fun. Yeah, that was fun. I miss all the practice, man.
Oh, but like on COVID, like Jin is not. I'm not an extrovert. You can claim that I am.
Oh,
Jin definitely isn't an extrovert.
No, you are. You are textbook an extrovert. There's no discussion or debate with regard to you. You just think you're not because you're not socially outgoing.
I hang out with like 2 people.
But you do things with humans. Every time I'm talking to you, you're like, "Oh, I got to go do this thing for this person." Do you know what happens when you ask me something, Lex? I'm like, "I'm taking a shit." Like, I'm napping with my cat. Oh, I'm just sitting at my computer doing nothing, playing World of Warcraft, drinking. Of course I'm free to play Street Fighter because I don't socialize with humans as frequently as a normal human being does because I'm extremely introverted. And I want people to leave me the fuck alone 90% of the time.
It is hard sometimes because I'll text you and you'll be like, ooh, yeah, I'd love to hang out, but I'm pooping.
Yep.
Or yeah, like I'd love to play some Street Fighter with you, but like I played WoW today, and I'm just kind of done.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. That's exactly. You actually like you get like something from humans. Humans only take from me. I give to them. And
That's
I'm just like,
I'm
like, yeah, take it. That's good for me. I'm giving you the thing that I give you with my personality dick. And then like, and then when I'm done and I've blown my personality load onto their fucking extroverted face when they're like, give me your social interaction. I just look at them and I'm like, pathetic. And then I walk away and I leave them.
It is the refractory period.
And they clean it up and they call me in a few days. And then I'm like, fine. That's basically how I interact with people. All right. Like, so anyway.
And of course, that's what I'm here for, is to take that kind of abuse from you. And then our viewers,
you want
of course,
it. You want it. Exactly.
Yeah,
you want it because
I'm into the abuse.
The extroverts are the cum sluts. Okay. And the
I'm more offended at being called an extrovert than a cum slut.
They're the same in this analogy. They're the same.
Well, sure.
Because you just you're like, I need this social cum on my face. I need it. It makes me, whereas I'm like, like, and I'm done. Right. But like, you're just like, oh, next guy. Right. Like it's social bukkake is what we're getting at.
I do tend to do a thing like a lot.
Yep. That's because you're a fucking extrovert, Lex.
But it's Jen, it's Jeff, and it's you.
It's not about how many people there are. It's that you need it. You need that thing.
Social connection.
You need that.
I've been okay. in COVID.
You've been struggling. Get out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
I do pretty well, if I'm being totally honest. In the COVID times,
yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I like hitting you up for games or calling Jeff and playing Resident Evil 3 online. But I could sit here by myself.
You're not the most extroverted person I've ever met or anything. Yeah,
that's another word for introvert. So
out of control. Anyway, so COVID's crazy. And I guess we'll segue into our main topic of fucking police brutality and George Floyd and the walls,
murder,
the walls of society that are crumbling around us, but not the White House, because we have black fences. We have black chain link fences blocking in 2 miles of the White House, so Trump can get his fake suntan while everybody burns down America. So anyway, the sky is falling. Things are crazy.
Help me out. Last week is when shit went down. Is that wrong?
Dude, what is time anymore?
I feel like I've been here for an eon.
Let me give you my window into this as a as an ambivalent, privileged white person on the internet. This is like basically I don't know what the time frame is, but this is my perception. I'm on Twitter. I'm playing World of Warcraft. People are talking about COVID things, whatever. And then I start seeing a thing here and there that's vaguely about, this is a couple weeks ago, I feel like, right? It's got to be at least like 2 weeks or something. But I start thinking a thing that's vaguely about police being pieces of shit. And I'm just like, police are being pieces of shit.
They're the worst.
Imagine that, like, there's, no training, no de-escalation, fucking whatever the fuck, like bad apples, yada, yada. Okay, cool. I'm just going to go on with my life and play World of Warcraft. And then it's like, this black guy got murdered. And I was like, oh, damn, that's crazy. But again, fucking America, like, I don't know, like, is it a crazy thing any more so than the last time it happened? Is it worse? Is it better? I don't know. I'm just going to continue playing World of Warcraft. And then eventually I start seeing his name. This is, again, several weeks ago. Yeah. But I don't know that it's not
several weeks ago.
Oh, it's not.
He died on the 25th. So
2 weeks, I was right.
Yeah. But importantly, we did life sure was great. Boy, howdy, wasn't it fun having racial interactions, talking to people different from us. Wow, I'm sure grateful to fighting games.
Was that our last podcast or the one before this?
That was 2 podcasts ago.
Yeah, two podcasts ago. 2 weeks.
Last week we talked about video games. Week before we were like, yeah, race is great. And then 3 days later, George Floyd gets murdered.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yay, America. Yay, America. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't know the guy's name. I just knew, oh, great, like another black person is randomly murdered by cops. Yay, America. And then eventually I just started kind of seeing that and being like, oh, here, this is like, it's a thing. Like people are,
it's a big deal. People are invested.
Yes, exactly. Which is horrible, but like,
well, no, it is horrible, but like,
but that's kind of the point, is that it happens all the fucking time. Exactly. And so, I was, not that I would be sweeping it under the rug or anything like that, but you read that shit all the fucking time and then you just go on about your life. But, this one getting traction, I think it probably took me, I was probably about a week behind, maybe a little less, maybe like 5 days. Because I had seen it and was like, yeah. Anyway,
maybe that's why we didn't talk about it last podcast.
Well, it hadn't happened, you said, right?
No, last podcast it did happen. The one before then, we just barely missed it by a few days.
I feel like as of last podcast, would have been, because I've been
in the know.
I've been doing my as an honorable citizen. I retweet and like all the tweets, so I have done my part and I have solved racism.
Have you followed at least 2 black people on Twitter?
Let's see. Floyd? I've got you and goddamn.
No, you have to follow new black people.
Yeah, no. It was So I've done my due diligence. I've participated in everything by retweeting hashtags. God, man. I'm not gonna make it through this podcast without shitting on white people infinitely more by the time
it's okay. It's okay.
Using myself as the scarecrow. This is definitely the most we did talk about this around about the time of that podcast. So I don't remember timeline wise if it just wasn't the topic at that time, or if maybe it was too much of the topic and it was all too new. Because my tendency with this shit is to like, I don't know. Okay, this is this is fucking stupid, but like, I have never gone hamsies on any social movement immediately since Coney 2012. I have not, like, they fucking got me, man. They got me.
They memed you into the
They
movement.
got me. Like 8 years ago, they fucking got me. And then I was like, oh my God, this guy's like running around jacking off in the middle of a mall. And like, this isn't even a thing. And so anytime something like this happens, like I'm already like generally a skeptic. And that was the one time where I was like, oh man, this seems like, there was so much momentum behind it. And so now anytime a thing happens, I'm always like, okay, but let's give it a minute. Let's give it a minute and see like what the fuck's going on. So it could have been something like that, but anyway, it's full steam now is I think the point.
Oh yeah,
it's
full
a whole
steam
thing.
ahead.
Yeah.
So like they've burned down a police station, and
isn't
people
it like multiple buildings in the immediate city?
Well, they
police station, but also like a bunch of shit, right? Yeah.
Other places got hit, but like they burned down the police station, and people were like, "Yeah," which you normally don't hear. Most of the time, people demand the silent, quiet, peaceful, calm protest. And now we're getting to a place where they're like, I don't know, maybe we should burn down a police substation. Yeah, and that's suddenly the topic of conversation. It's like, oh shit, yeah, I guess it's real. I guess today's the day. Huh?
Today is the day we burn it down.
Yeah, I mean, I have talked before about taking down the establishment, and I always meant it metaphorically, and now they're literally taking down the establishment, and like, woo!
Yeah,
and we're off to the races, guys. Or maybe that's a bad coin of phrase or thing to say, but like, yeah. Shit is getting real. You guys don't have curfew, right?
Nope. We've had two protests. I
heard one was big.
One was big. I almost went to it, but I played World of Warcraft and had white privilege instead.
You don't have to go out to these. COVID is still a thing.
Hey man, I retweeted it. So like again, I'm covered.
You did your part.
I did my part.
Every little bit helps.
I got my tweets out.
Really small, itty bitty, microscopic, almost insignificant bit helps. I think there's another one today or tomorrow in St. Peter's. That's I'm sure. Okay, I should have gone to the one in St. Charles. I don't know. I'm gonna blame COVID. I actually don't fault you because of COVID.
Yeah, it's different than like going out to like, even if you go out to like a bar, if there's like 10 people around in the street, that's like one thing, which I haven't done yet either. But like I keep thinking I might at some point. But then, like, fucking dude, the rallies are like, I mean, I think there were several thousand in the St. Charles one.
In St. Charles? I didn't know that you guys got thousands big, but that's pretty good. I knew it was big.
I want to say there were.
good.
So, which is great, but then COVID, Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, it's really hard because everyone's got to wear a mask, and it's really hard to talk into a megaphone when you're wearing a mask. And
yeah. But yeah, the St. Peter's one, I wouldn't trust. I feel like the St. Peter's one, if there's any rally in this area that's bound to end up being like way more weird, questionably white supremacist people, I feel like it's the St. Peter's one. Like I lived in St. Peter's for about 4 years when I was like 20. Damn. I was like 20 to 24. It really wasn't. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I feel like it's actually.
It was St. Peter's.
Well, St. Peter's is a girl I dated once described St. Peter's as bereft of culture, which is so accurate. There's like it's just Picklemans and Jack in the Box and McDonald's. There's no anything, and I think it's gotten better. They've got like Third Wheel Brewing is there, which is pretty cool now, and they have that Nama something. There's a pizza place that's supposed to be really good and like cool, authentic Italian-y pizza stuff. There's like 1 or 2 places in St. Peter's where you're like, all right, there's a little culture there, St. Peter's. It's just a little smidge.
Just a dash, just a little
guy. So,
for flavor.
But I went like 2 years ago. I had not really been back to, because like that's where like Mid Rivers Mall is and shit. And like who goes to a mall? Who goes to a mall anymore? Other than occasionally needing to stop by like a Best Buy, which is the only Best Buy is right there.
Oh yeah, mine's Brentwood.
Yeah, I have not fucked with St. Peter's in quite a while. And anyway, long story short, I went there like 2 years ago. I forget why I was there, but I was in the area and I was fucking hungry and I think I was getting my car fixed. I think my dealership is like right on the outskirts of St. Charles / St. Peter's or something. And I think it was like something with my car. And I was like, oh, I'll go to the McDonald's. There's that one right up the road by where I used to live or whatever. And oh my God, there were like 5 tables of people. Okay. And everyone at each table was wearing camouflage. And they were all talking about, like Trump and the wall and liberals being terrible. And I was like, all right. This feels a lot. I mean, I know I'm at a McDonald's in St. Peter's, but God damn, I don't remember, because I remember I used to like have, so we'll segue back into the main topic. I used to host Smash Fest at my apartment there, and there were black people at my Smash Fests because fighting games are diverse, and that's awesome.
That's the miracle of the community or whatever.
Yeah, which is great. And we went to that McDonald's, and I don't ever remember there being a dude fucking talking about building walls and hating black people and MAGA, because the world was less shitty.
And the world wasn't less shitty.
I think
the world was just quieter about how shitty it was.
Okay,
hadn't reached a boiling point.
I'm not going to disagree with that point in terms of the fact you will note that I did not say the world was less racist. I said the world was less shitty.
Less shitty.
And
there wasn't COVID.
But I do think, I'm not saying it's a solution or that anything, but I do think if your choices are quieter, less on the surface racism or more in your face racism, one of those is better than the other. There's still racism. Like, or are you going to tell me you prefer the surface level racism? I believe you've actually made this argument to me before.
I do.
So you prefer a guy telling you that he doesn't appreciate you just because you're ordering a Big Mac, as opposed to ordering a Big Mac and
then having him know and judge and be quiet about it.
Would you notice
about Big
his
Macs,
judgment?
right?
Yes, yeah, we're talking about Big Mac.
Well, okay, if we're specifically talking about Big Macs, I would notice how he looked at me. I would notice how he would say, "Oh, you want a Big Mac? Are you sure?" I would pick up on it, and I'd be like, "That guy was fucking judging me for getting a Big Mac."
And you'd rather he said it.
I would really rather he say it. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, I don't want to feel gaslit when I say that fucking guy was talking about Big Macs, like I don't deserve a Big Mac, and then have you be like, "No, I'm sure he was just selling Big Macs."
That is an excellent point.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't like to be made to feel like I'm crazy. And the other thing is, and this is perhaps a little bit more militant or radical than I think you might have expected to come from me, but with the in-your-face racism that we've been subjected to over the last week or so, like specifically in terms of police brutality and mismanagement of all manner of thing, it's getting addressed. I've been making fun of people for doing the Blackout Tuesday profile pic thing,
Okay, dude,
or
that shit
retweeting
was
and
so stupid.
reblog. Well,
Like,
yeah,
come
and it
on.
was a psyop. But the point is, people are noticing and talking about it rather than making me feel gaslit by it. And I know now. I always suspected, and I know now who my enemies are, and I can feel and see support from people to the degree that people are comfortable sharing it. Whether you changed your profile pic, or whether you've been marching, or whether you were talking about marching, or donated to a cause and talked about it, or whatever. I know where people's loyalties lie when it comes to how they handle and perceive racial conflict.
So so that all makes a lot of sense. Very well said.
Thank you.
I guess that's just like super duper white privilege, because for me it's like it is I guess it felt more amicable, right? Like previously.
Yeah.
And that's not like, absolutely don't confuse this with like, because I think this is the most I've ever been this is the most I think I've ever been behind the more like, I guess we'll say violent, destructive, whatever aspect of things.
The aggressive property damage and that.
I've generally, like in the past, been in your generic white people camp of like, but why the property damage, right? I think this is the first time, and I think it's because we talked about this a bit off the podcast. How quote unquote good of a candidate George Floyd was. Which
is a fucked up way to look at it, but as long as we're here, we might as well.
Well, it is fucked up, but it's also,
the case. Yeah,
it's also the case. I mean, and I think the like the analogy I was drawing is like, we've got the racism boardroom, right, or the anti-racism boardroom, I guess, rather. And they're like, oh man, how do we champion this movement? Like we've got to, can we kill a baby? Can we kill?
No, that's too far.
Oh, but if it's a baby, no one can argue with a baby, because I feel like people in the past, and they always do it. This is a tactic. Everybody knows this, right? Like you try to paint him as, oh, well, he smoked weed once or whatever the fuck. They're going to make up some shit.
He had an arrest record. He was tall.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously your spectrum of incidents of any kind, it's very easy to muddy any situation with any negative perception and be like, well, and sometimes the thing that occurs, it turns out like maybe a person really is like negative, but it still makes it wrong. But because a person had like quote unquote actual criminal record instead of just like weed or whatever dumb bullshit, suddenly it's like, well, this movement's just going to die because X amount of people, that's sufficient for them, right or wrong.
Yeah,
strategically,
you robbed a 7-Up or whatever, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that you do deserve to have been shot." I mean, you did rob a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, exactly, and
that
non-zero
is number of people.
Yeah, that is a highly relevant number. And thus far, as shitty as it is, like you said, but like strategic viability of like George Floyd's incident as a figurehead. Or a catalyst, whatever you want to call it. He did not rob a 7-Eleven.
No, he was just like a really cool dude. Now he's dead.
He's just a dude who's dead. So
and we saw him.
I think that's why there's extra steam. Yeah. I feel like now, not that it's never been a person like that before, but it's never. That's never been the person who.
He's a perfect storm guy.
That's exactly my point.
Yeah,
he's almost a baby. They almost murdered a baby.
Yeah.
Like
he's
the ideal
the
baby murdering child. Yeah, exactly. So like that, I think that's a big reason why a lot more people are not letting it go. Which is shitty in and of its own right. But I mean, I keep using the word strategically. I don't know if that's correct, but I mean, I do think that's an important thing to consider. It's like when you're talking about. I don't know. It's like when you talk about politics and electing, non-white politicians or female politicians, and obviously everybody wants that, but sometimes people get offended because you're like, is this person electable? And sometimes that is a shitty question that shouldn't be asked, and other times it is a question of matter of fact of, I don't know, are they electable, right? It's the same kind of deal. Bernie's the same way, even though he's a white dude, like he's is he electable? Probably not. That's why we have to deal with Joe Biden, because two-party system is fucking horseshit and everybody gets fucked and everything's terrible. Like,
that's a whole different issue.
Well, yeah.
Joe.
Yeah. What was that? You said something, you cut out, and then I heard Joe.
I said I'm pretty mad at Joe, but cutting out and muttering Joe is probably
annoyed by Joe Biden at this point, other than, I don't know, people who...
Well, I'd say Joe Biden, but then again, he's not entirely there anymore.
He's a weird dude. He's weird. Oh, sorry. Alert. This podcast will contain political speak and content. I know we've been talking about a murdered black man for the last 15 minutes, but now that we're talking about Joe Biden, we need to put out a PSA. And if that doesn't just encapsulate the whole fucking thing, then I don't know what does.
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like you have some words to say, and I'll stop mumbling.
You're good. You're good. If we're talking about him as a poster child for the movement, I see what you're saying, that it's not an election, but is he electable in the same sense?
Yeah, exactly.
He's more electable. He has a higher electability than a Mike Brown or whatever. It's still wrong and horrible that someone was killed without, like, summarily executed without, due process and all. Mm-hmm. But we can move past that conversation and have a conversation with the white liberals who think that racism is bad but don't want to do anything about it. Mm-hmm. We can have the real meats of a conversation with them now. Yeah. And I think that's one of my big irritations. Not to accuse anyone specifically of doing this, and certainly not you. Just that I'm
just imagining this is A2.
It's not A2. A2's fine.
I know. But the narrative for comedic purpose.
Oh, sure.
Will be that I turn into the mic and say, "Yeah, A2" after every point that you make. Anyway.
No, it's there's some people on my it's plural people in my Facebook feed who are like,
okay, quoting fuck Facebook. Yeah. I don't know how you put up with that, but please go on. And
because my aunt asked me to make a Facebook post.
Fuck every relative I have on Facebook. My mom asked me to make Facebook posts for her fucking dumbass brothers and sisters all the time. Anyway. All right, so your aunt, you're on Facebook.
Let me back up. Let me show my work here. My Aunt Debbie is black, and she, like my dad, who is her sister, married a white person, and had mixed children. So there's a bunch of us cousins that are all of mixed origin. She asked us cousins to share our experiences with race and racism as an attempt to sort of share these stories and open people's eyes, because I can't explain to you what it's like to be black, but I could try, certainly, and I think that's what you wanted me to do. And I felt particularly fired up to do this and to make these. I've made 2 Facebook posts, spend way too much time typing. I felt fired up because there's a non-zero number of people on my Facebook timeline who are cherry-picking Dr. King quotes to make him seem like he was nonviolent and peaceful and quiet and respectful, and that's the only thing that should be done, because isn't Dr. King cool?
Did you see the tweet?
Which?
Okay, there's a tweet where someone was like basically doing that. They're like, I am very white, and Dr. King was very peaceful, and I just wish that everyone else could protest as peacefully as Dr. King, because Dr. King was peaceful and he was black and he said racism was bad and he was peaceful and yeah.
And we like him. Everybody likes him.
And I'm white and yeah. And this, at the risk of sounding racist myself, it was some very, very black Twitter account. I don't remember. Like it was a very, black people Twitter, our black people Twitter, the response. And the response was like, they fucking shot him in the head, fam. Like, and I was like, that was the quote. Like, they quote tweeted it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is the best fucking thing I've ever. Like, it was so succinct.
Raw?
I think, yeah, it was so, like, it was just like, it was this eloquent, super white Karen, whatever the fuck. Like, I just think that Dr. King was so peaceful. And this guy, like, generic black dude avatar is just like, they fucking shot him in the face, you fucking idiot. Like,
bam.
like, yeah, like, what the fuck? I was like, oh my God, that's so perfect. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that is what you're encountering on Facebook.
Yeah,
that kind of shit.
That frustrates me. And like, I don't give a rat's ass about a Target getting burnt down in protest, because now people are talking about it. And as long as I keep shouting at people, shut up talking about the Target, let's talk about why the Target was burned down in the first place. As long as I keep doing that, I feel like the conversation's moving to a place that's productive, rather than just being like, let's be quiet and calm. Let's all take a knee. Let's have a 5 seconds of quiet reflection, and then just not talk about this ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Because to a certain extent, I don't know if this is irrational or not. I feel like people are caught up in their own comfort level. And when people are burning down buildings and shouting about it and saying, yeah, I'm glad that police substation burned, it makes them uncomfortable. It makes some people uncomfortable, because they have to be like, well, is it really okay? And I feel like they get caught up in that wondering whether or not it's okay that it's uncomfortable, because that's what immediately impacts them, rather than addressing the root problem, which is racism, which probably doesn't, for the largest part, affect them. Or at least not the same way that it affects, black people.
You mean, wait a minute, what?
Like me.
So, I mean, I think it's tough because, like I said, this is definitely I don't know that I've ever been as on the side of the rioters, which is not a thing.
For uprising.
Yeah, no, exactly.
This is an insurrection.
Anytime I do this, there's a degree there's a large degree of sarcasm in what I've just said. So yeah, I think, but I have in the past, like, I mean, Ferguson to me was, it's hard for me. I'm still kind of working through that for myself as I kind of look at this situation versus the whole Mike Brown thing. Because the Ferguson situation was obviously very close to home. I worked in Ferguson for years. It was about 4 years or so. When I was in Brentwood, about probably 40% of my jobs were in-home jobs. I was an in-home installer for an electronics retailer, Circuit City, which is dead now, lol. And about 40% of my jobs were in Ferguson. So I spent a decent amount of time in Ferguson, in the black people's houses. And like, and I remember like kind of going through that and having to reconcile when all the Ferguson protesting and I think we can say there's rioting too, but I remember all that happening and like just being like, wow, this is wild. Cause like, on the one hand, I was like, I don't really, shocker, I don't remember there being that much racism in Ferguson. Like, ho-hum, do diddly.
Yeah. And I don't fault you for not, because your eyes aren't open to that the same way mine are. Sure.
But I also had like, I forget her last name, but she was this old lady named Laura, and she was fucking awesome. And there were a couple like old people that I think would just like make shit up about their computer just to like talk to me for a while.
Get you in.
And she would always come over and talk to me about like, I don't know, like fucking life and the universe and race stuff. And she had like a daughter that was married to a white guy. And so she would like talk to me about that. And it was like always an interesting thing. And she was like this super cool lady. And like, I definitely remember like that being one of the first times I had like, well, it wasn't the first times I had conversations about race, but it was the first time I had conversations about race with people that were old enough to have the ability to really collect their thoughts and about it.
Okay.
I mean, I was like 20, right? So most people I talked to were just like, fucking blah, blah, blah words. And I'd be like, okay, our brains aren't developed. Like, we don't fucking, I mean, like, what are we talking about?
I'm not there either. Don't worry.
Yeah, like, I don't know. So, but she would like tell me about things and I'd be like, damn, that's like a really interesting point. Like you're, just the wisdom of old people, right? Like generally speaking. Sure. So anyway, point being, I feel like I knew the Ferguson area pretty well, having worked there for a couple of years. And I don't know, I got pretty swept up in a lot of the rioty stuff and being annoyed by it because I had a buddy who worked at the circuit attorney's office. And this is where it's interesting. And this is why I think my experience is so interesting. I don't know how much of it is the movement, me growing as a person, society growing as a person, the movement itself.
Fighting games helping you.
Don't forget this is a video game podcast, kids.
We are about video games.
We're about video games. But I don't know how much of it is that versus how much of it is actually things changing versus it's all very complex, right? There's just so many variables and factors.
It's an evolution.
But I know at the time, like my viewpoint of the whole thing with Mike Brown was like, shit is fucked up. Shit should not have happened. The number one thing is police training is dog shit in America. Any way you slice it, you know, they don't know anything about de-escalation. They're not properly equipped to deal with situations. That was like all the biggest thing for me at the time, right? And then on go ahead.
I'd like to say I'm gonna hold on to. You said that the biggest thing was police training, and they don't know de-escalation and things. I will come back to that when you've said your bit.
Okay, we'll pin it. So, but that was like the number one part of it was clearly like, this is fucked up. Cops are fucked up. Like, you know, MCAB as opposed to ACAB and all that or whatever. Like, you know, yada yada. Yeah, exactly. Like, but like, you know, most cops are bastards. Like, I'm like, all right, I can dip my toe in this pool, like, or whatever the fuck, like, right. So that's kind of like where I was at, and it was. I don't know. I have a hard time rallying behind Mike Brown. Dude should not have gotten murdered. Is still a tragedy, yes, but it is hard to rally behind that person. And that doesn't mean.
As a point of clarification, do you find that it is hard to rally behind Mike Brown, or harder to rally behind Mike Brown than it is to rally around George Floyd?
I think it's very easy to rally around George Floyd. So I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, sure, it is very easy, which means that it is harder to rally behind Mike Brown. Are you saying that it's harder or hard?
I don't understand the difference, I guess.
Is it difficult for you to rally behind
or
Mike
more
Brown?
Difficult relatively?
Or just more difficult?
Oh, no, it's difficult for me too, to be honest with you. It is.
Okay.
For me, I have to extrapolate that entirely and look at the instance and how it shouldn't have happened. If I'm being politically optimal or looking at my own thoughts, I think those are in alignment, to be honest with you. It's still stupid. It still shouldn't happen. It still is horseshit. I don't think any part of me is like, oh, well, you know, like, you shouldn't have fucking robbed the 7-Eleven or tried to punch that guy or whatever the fuck people said. That's why you got shot. You shouldn't have got shot for that. That is not commensurate with the offense. And that wouldn't happen to a white person.
Certainly.
That is all like very logically yes to me. And I get that. But I'll be damned if it isn't just really hard when they're not an innocent baby. You know,
when they're not a George Floyd.
Yeah. And so parts of that occurring, and I think I didn't know enough about at the time, and this is where I need to, now that we're talking about this, I probably should have thought this out more, but it's also probably interesting to hear me fumble and go through it in real time. But I think I need to go back and look at some of those events, because some of them I remember being like, oh yeah, like, it's very justified to like go ham on like the police station or whatever, because I have, even before, you know, I learned that, you know, black people existed or whatever, I have never had a very high opinion of cops in general, to be honest with you. I mean, I think I've told you about, you know, I had a guy like pull me over and harass me for like 2 hours one time. I think I've told you, like, when I was
because
younger.
He thought that you had the drug dealer car.
He thought I had like a drug dealer car. I drove a car that was very similar to some prominent drug dealer, which I didn't learn until years later from a guy who, I guess, did drugs and told me that. And he was like, hey man, just so you know, he goes, do you get pulled over a lot? And I was like, yeah, I do fucking get pulled over a lot. What's that about? And he was like, the biggest like drug dealer dude in like this area drives a car that is exactly like your car. And I was just like, God damn, that makes so much sense.
Oh.
So yeah, this cop pulled me over, and he was like a total douche. Like he like floored it on my ass. And I had like what I now know, looking back, was like a panic attack, right? This guy's like riding my ass, and he doesn't have his lights on. I don't know he's a cop. It's dark out. It's nighttime. And this guy's just riding my ass. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm 19 or some shit. I don't know. 20 maybe. I don't know. Pretty young. And like, I'm just like, oh my God, this guy won't get the fuck off my ass. And first I'm annoyed, right? Because people are driving like shitty. And then I'm like, I'm just going to speed up. But then like, I've already sped up and he's just going even faster. And he's like about to hit me. And I'm just like, what the fuck? I gotta like speed up. And now I'm like mad, but I'm scared. And I don't want to hit the brakes because I think he's going to hit me if I hit the brakes. And it's this whole crazy thing. And I end up like doing like 90 and fucking almost losing control of my car because I'm just like in this crazy mental state. And then he flicks the lights on. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, this is a cop. He's been like fucking harassing me and baiting me into doing this. And then he pulls me over. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then he chews me out for like 2 hours. He like fucking threatens me with his fucking like baton or fucking like, you know, says he's going to throw me in jail or whatever the fuck, like says he's going to rip me out of the car and like all this shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know how to handle any of this. I've never dealt with any of this. Like, so anyway, long story short, he like peeled out and shot a bunch of fucking gravel all over my car and gave me some shitty ticket, which I wouldn't have even driven like that if he wasn't fucking goading me into doing it.
Yeah.
And like, it was crazy. So I've never been a big fan of cops in general. And I think looking at like some of those events, I would look at like some of the stuff, you know, that specifically was geared towards like how shitty the cops were and all that. And I'd think, yeah, like there is an amount of this that has to be like, I'm not saying you need to go kill people, but like there's an amount of it that like they're just going to sweep under the rug, right? You've got to like draw some shit out. But then at the same time, I was like, man, Quick Trip is a really nice gas station.
Quick Trip didn't do anything to anybody.
Why did they burn down the Quick Trip? Like, if it was like a Target or a Walmart, I probably would have been more like
Walmart.
But Quick Trip is like, they're a nice, upstanding, wonderful chain of gas stations in the Midwest. And like, ho hum.
The gas is so affordable, and they've got the free air.
They have the cleanest bathrooms. They got free air for your tires. They don't make good sandwiches anymore, so we can burn down all the motherfucking Quick Trips at this point. But they used to make
back in the day,
they used to make delicious sandwiches, God damn it. And so I think where I'm at now to finish this thought process before we go too far off the rails, I don't know that I can 100% get behind just like burning shit for the sake of burning shit because it sends a message. But I do think if it's Walmart or whatever, yeah, like I am down with like, well, people's lives can't be replaced. A fucking Walmart can. If we need to burn down a Walmart to get people's attention, I don't know that I can
stop killing folks.
I don't know that I can say like the sentence, let's burn down all the Walmarts, but at the same time, let's burn down all the Walmarts.
Let's like, burn down all the Walmarts. And if it helps to stop racism, definitely burn them.
Definitely burn down the Walmarts. Anyway. Yeah. And I do think that like this is the first time it's been so not only electable as we've said, but then also so apparent. I forget the guy's fucking name, but I when I was doing my white people's due diligence of retweeting things about race and black people, I tweet. It's like a 30-second video. It's this dude from like the 60s. You maybe already know what I'm talking about. No,
depends.
He's getting interviewed. I forget his fucking name, but he's basically like, hey, like I'm 60 years old. I'm not gonna live another 60 years. Like,
man, thank God.
This is
be in 2020.
He's like, this is taking my time. This is taking my daughter's time. It's taking my grandchildren's time. It's taken like my friend's time, my family's time. And then he just says like, how much more time do you want? And he has this like snappy pause and he says, for your progress. And then that's the whole video. And I was like,
yeah, that's about right.
That's pretty fucking good though. And I think that's something that like, I've definitely like as generic white person number 472 that, you know, I guess wasn't racist, but also wasn't especially understanding of things because of being in rural white areas for my whole life, was like, yeah, racism sucks and shouldn't be a thing, but also, man, you know, things take time. Like that seemed like a perfectly rational statement for me at a time in my life where I was like, you know, it is shitty, but things take time. Whereas now it's like, God damn, man. Like
we're still at this shit.
Like, yeah. Like, and I think that's like, you know, if I can speak on behalf of all white people,
I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
Cool. You can speak on behalf of all black people right after this for me.
Sure,
thanks, dude. Or at least half of them and half of the white people, if we're being fair. But no, like I think that's in the ether, like in the air. That is a much more noticeable, accepted, like prevalent thought, which is just that, goddamn, it's been enough time. It's been enough time. Like, yeah.
No, you're right. It's been like an excessive
for whatever
amount
reason,
of time.
people think that now. You know, like. Anyway, you were talking about things.
Okay, so I've got a pin of yours to address, but before that, I'm gonna try my best to summarize. A lot of people have been, as I said, cherry picking Dr. King in order to make their point that we should just be quiet and shut up, and we'll get progress when we deserve it, when we've worked hard enough. I'm going to read a Dr. King quote from his letter from a Birmingham jail, which he wrote. It's kind of famous. It's been going around a lot. If you aren't familiar with it, you should be. Read the whole thing, everybody. But I'm going to read this bit anyway. He says, "I must make 2 honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block is in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the absence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goals you seek, but I cannot agree with you in the methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season."
Yeah, that's a good quote.
Yeah, no, read the whole thing. Great essay. And that's most of any time I see someone post, "Wow, I can't believe you guys heard a target" on Facebook, and I've seen it. Not with that exact character voice, but like I've seen it on my Facebook feed. That's all that rings in my head is, you're the white moderate, and at least the racists are honest that they don't want progress to happen. You're just kind of like telling me I'll get it at the end of the year if I'm good. But to address the pin, you said that the most important thing about the Mike Brown case was the way that it was handled, the tactics, the police training, the lack of de-escalation.
Cameras too, which I forgot to mention, but that was the first time everyone was like, why the fuck don't we have cameras? Yeah.
Accountability would have made the whole thing, and thank God that
accountability would have killed the whole thing,
George
right?
Floyd.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah, right.
Systematically, no. Systematically, no. We know that now, which is why this is happening. But in the public eye, it would have been obvious.
Yes.
Yeah. As it is now. Anyway, yeah.
But like, okay, so on that, the big issue for me, because my first interaction with a police officer pulling me over was, I believe, a little bit different from yours. The problem is that it's not that they don't teach them de-escalation; it's that isn't even a blip. They're not teaching them, not because they don't know how to express it or they can't find the right words, but because it's not important.
Oh, I agree 100%.
Yeah. And I understand. I'm not arguing with you per se, just to clarify.
It's predominantly a gang of bullies. I mean, it's literally the bullies from high school. Like a lot of them, yes.
The Institute, and I'm related to police officers.
So am I. I mean, I don't give a fuck. I don't really particularly like any of them.
But like, to share my first time I had ever been pulled over. I think I had told you this one. If I didn't,
is this the stop sign one?
Yeah, it was the stop sign.
Yeah. This is a good story though. You should tell it to the audience. I do know it though. Yes.
I was leaving my Aunt Debbie's. Invariably, it was February. Every February, I work with her on Black History Month stuff because she's a former teacher and she goes to schools or she goes to museums and stuff with her hands on Black History Museum. She's got a traveling museum that she brings around. That's not as important, but it's kind of timely or funny now that I think about it. I was leaving there some 9 minutes outside of Ferguson in Beverly Hills, Missouri. And I get to a stop sign at a 4-way intersection, and I see across the street, there's a police officer. And again, I've never been pulled over before in my life. I've seen my dad get pulled over. I've been in the back seat when he got a ticket once. But I see the guy see me, and I see that he like notices me and takes me in as a person, which makes me supremely uncomfortable. And so I come to my 3-second pause, and then I start driving again. And then he flips on his lights and his sirens, and he whips a Yui. And he pulls me over, and he asks me for my license and proof of insurance. And it's the first time I've ever been pulled over, and I'm so nervous and so shaky. And so,
were you like 20 something or like a younger
18, 19?
18, 19?
Yeah. I handed him my AAA card rather than my insurance, which, thinking back on it, like how funny, but like the whole thing, as I understand from my mom who explained to me what happened, he saw me
after the
as
fact.
a young, well, yeah, my mom explained after the fact. She wasn't there with me in the car. She explained to me that he saw me as a young black man and decided to pull me over, hoping that he could catch me not having valid proof of insurance. Because if you pull someone, you can't pull someone over suspecting that they don't have insurance. Mm-hmm. But if you pull someone over in a routine traffic stop and find out that they don't have insurance, then you get to write them a big fine, bring in money for the municipality. I finally hand him the right proof of insurance. He gets all of my information. He says, "Do you have any outstanding warrants I should be aware of?" I've never done anything in my life.
Yeah.
And I say no. And so he goes away. He double checks that my insurance is valid. He double checks I don't have any warrants. And then he comes back. And because he can't get shit all on me, he says, "Here you go. Here's your things back. You'd missed that stop sign." And I know I didn't. And he said, "Make sure that you stop at them stop signs, boy." And like, the whole game is given up. Like,
and this was not a foghorn leghorn boy. This was a boy. Or they're the same. It wasn't it wasn't the jovial boy.
No, I certainly wasn't jovial.
Yeah. But like, well, like, I mean, no, my point with that, just to be clear on that, like,
your clarification.
Yeah, it was a sinister one, right? Or are you saying that it was?
No. There was no.
Yeah, that's what I was.
He didn't. Because he didn't call me the N-word.
You can foghorn leghorn boy, and you can be like, "Well, are you like giving me an elbow, or are you?" I don't know, and that's kind of weird and shitty too. Or you can be like, "Boy," and like. So it was the latter, not the former.
Yeah, but like
it was definitive.
He said "boy" in a way that we both understood what he was saying. He's like, "You're black. I did this. There's nothing you can do about it."
Yep.
He didn't call me the N-word because he didn't have to.
Yep.
But that's what he was saying, and that speaks to his training, to the mindset, the bullying mindset of the police. The whole point of that traffic stop was he saw me, thought that he could get an easy one over on me and bring in some money for the municipality because he's a racist shithead. And that's all the training. That's all of that's what brought us to that exact moment.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the police for me. I don't like that experience.
Well, and I think the problem I have, if I can defend all white people, is I think they're just so focused on like trying to. They're so focused on trying to look at the system as if it can't surely it can't be that bad. And I think if you kind of look at their typical experience, it's not an unreasonable one. I don't have an especially, unprivileged upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm pretty set middle class. I don't have an especially privileged or unprivileged, other than the fact that I'm a white dude, obviously, which is pretty fucking privileged. But like, economically, right? Yeah. Like I'm pretty square in the middle. And I don't ever feel like, other than my relatives, I don't really remember any time, even my relatives, I didn't like them, but like I knew they were cops. And so they could like, I guess you could see that as like, well, cousin blah, 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 blah is a cop, blah, blah, blah. And like, surely things, but like any run-in I ever had for the most part with cops, it always seemed like they were, and I don't think I could articulate at the time, but it's like I said, it seemed like they were like again, like a gang of bullies where they were. And that's how actually the cherry on top to my story is, the same cop who fucking abused me and fucking like goaded me and fucking traumatized me. Like 2 months later, somebody broke into my car and stole my MP3 player. And I filed a police report. It was that fucking cop that took the report. And the whole time he's just like looking at me with this fucking shit-eating grin on his face. And I know he's not going to fucking do anything.
A damn thing. Because like what incentive does he have? The police as an infrastructure, as an organization, do not exist to help you get your MP3 player back. They don't give a shit if you've got your Zune. They're there to get money for the municipality and to bully people around to make sure that there's not unrest. And I'll be damned if there's not a lot of unrest right now.
Oh, there's a shit ton. And I think going back to all white people and their thoughts, I think it's hard for them to conceive that. I think you'd be hard pressed not find some degree of agreeability with your average. I don't even think liberal, but vaguely liberal, even liberally, moderately liberal, whatever. I feel like any person around that spectrum is going to be like, if you give them two statements, okay, and one was that all cops are bastards, and the other was that most cops are bastards, they would have almost no problem with the latter, but they have a lot of problem with the former, and it's obvious. It's the same reason people are like, all lives matter, and they don't understand. It's the same thing, right? And I think it's tough for me because on the one hand, especially like looking at this situation as it is now, like there's a lot of stuff that I used to be a lot more like, well, most cops are bastards. There's stuff like that. I'm pretty sure I was never an all lives matter person. I'll have to scroll through my old Facebook, but like, I'm pretty sure I was never that fucking stupid, but I wouldn't swear to it. I have to go, 8 years ago is a long fucking time. Like who fucking knows? Like, but, I don't feel like that's a thing, but like there are different issues that, I'm going to go back to the viability of the argument, the electability of the movement, etc.
Sure.
Because I think as much as people don't want to talk about that, and I think it's important that there are people who don't care about that. It is important that there are people who are like, nah, we don't care about you. Fuck you. We have shit to do. I think that's important. But I also think it's important at a certain point, like, you need your tank busters, right? You need your frontline breakers. And at a certain point, though, you need like your average dumb moderate person to understand something. And like, I do think there's so much more penetration with things right now, with getting the average person who is resistant to the idea that the whole system is just fucked, because it is.
It's designed to be fucked.
Which is amazing. Yeah, and I think that's amazing. But I also think what's frustrating to me is from the argumentative standpoint of it, that people don't get that there is a viability to like how you communicate it. And the thing of it is that it really doesn't matter at the spearhead, though. Like, it's good that like I'm thinking of like Seth Rogen, where he's just like, Black Lives Matter, and then he gets all these. Have you seen this? It's fucking hilarious.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, and then like all the replies in his fucking thing are just like, fuck you, and he's like, fuck you, don't watch my movies. Like he responded like every single person. I think
who said
I think that's fucking. I think that's fucking great, and that's exactly what you should do. I think that's. It's certainly easier to get behind the sensibility of Black Lives Matter, right? It's certainly easier now than it was when the Black Lives Matter movements first started. The average person of generic whiteness, and I would say even myself included to a degree, is more in tune with like, let's go Black Lives. Moderate. I mean, I don't consider myself a moderate, but sure.
No, I know you're not.
I'm sometimes called a moderate by very, 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 very liberal people. I think I'm just a plain old liberal person. I think I'm like I'm a plain old liberal. I'm not a ultra liberal. I'm not a moderate, because I've talked to some moderates and been like, okay, whatever. But like, anyway, point being, I remember going back to, like the experience with all the Mike Brown stuff for me. There was definitely some points where I was like, okay, here's all this good stuff with Black Lives Matter. And then on the flip side, I remember walking down the street in good old St. Charles, and a group of BLM protesters just like flew out of a corner, right? And it's good that they were protesting. But what happened, okay, I was walking with my friends, and we're all like, holy shit, that's a lot of fucking protesters. And we were like startled because it was a giant fucking group of people that we didn't even know was there and couldn't hear because they were like behind a building. But we were just like, oh shit, it's BLM, like cool, whatever. And we just kept walking. But what happened in front of me is there was this lady and her husband and their kids, and they just like freaked out because And there is
Didn't
clearly
black people before.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't even predominantly black people. It was a BLM protest in St.
Good.
Charles. It was
Good
a BLM.
shit.
It was a BLM protest in St. Charles.
You got like 3 black people.
Yeah. I mean, there were more black people who had made the trip, right? Like, a good on them. But like it was
the journey.
It was a protest in St. Charles, right? But like, but my point is, like, it's tough because I think there are, and I don't know, I'm not the right person to answer this, but I do know that as I look at the issue, there are times when I see the fuck you, I don't give a fuck take. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I need. And there are other times when I'm like, man, I don't know. That might be in this particular instance. And I don't know when it's right or wrong. I'm not a fucking, I don't know. I'm just a fucking dude who plays video games. But I know in this instance, what happened was, I don't know these people. They were just people walking in front of me. Maybe they were already racist pieces of shit. But I feel like if they were, they would have had a much different reaction. Because I've had that. I mean, I remember I was driving. Okay, I'm going to try and keep this brief because I'm me. But I drove to Florida once on a road trip with my friends. Long story short, we had a tire blowout. This crazy shit happened. We happened to be like close enough to some fucking mechanic or something that he could get to us in like 20 minutes or something. He could drive. And we were like, oh my God, we're dumb kids. We're like all 18. We don't know what's going on. Thank you for fixing our car. This guy shows up, he fixes our car, and then, I don't remember the exact words, but he said something like, someone was talking about something you put on the car, and some piece was black, and some piece was white, and he made some, like, black and white never did go together comment, and I was just like, fucking what? Like, we were in, like, Georgia or Alabama. Sure. I think it was Alabama. Yeah, because you drive 7 hours through Alabama when you drive to Florida.
They've still got miscegenation laws.
And that was one of the first times I was just, like, fucking blown away with, like, a wave of just, like, he literally looked at us and was like, oh, you're all white kids? Sweet. Let's fucking, like, that dude was 2 seconds from just, like, fucking dropping everything. And I was like, okay, like, this is wild. These people in front of me did not have that reaction. They were just like scared, and they were like, oh my God, what is, I think they did. I feel like, I forget if they said what's wrong with them or if they actually said, quote, these people. So there was some shit. I mean, there's some shit. I don't remember. It's been a while. If it was these people, that's worse. If it was them, that's not as bad.
It's bad, but it's not as bad.
But there was, I don't remember which it was. But so, I mean, there was a vague connotation of it. But I remember looking at it being like, I don't feel like there were enough black people in the protest group for it to have been that. But maybe people. I'm just really white privileged, and maybe it was that, and I just can't tell, you know? I don't know. But they were like weird. They were like scared because there was just suddenly a mob of people and they weren't used to seeing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not, it's not something you see in
Blacktivism. It's not showing up.
Well, I don't. It's hard. Okay, it's hard for me to know. Here's where it's hard for me to know, because I don't think they knew when it happened what it was. It wasn't like they waited and looked at the signs and said, oh, it's BLM, now we're scared. It was like they came around the corner and they were just like, oh my God, we're suddenly in the middle of this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, awash in the sea.
Maybe I'm just very white privileged. That's probably the case. But it seemed to me like that was an instance where, not that they shouldn't have been protesting, but maybe they shouldn't have like just paraded through without there being some knowledge of it. Like the march we just did, it was like everybody knew it was happening. It was on Facebook. It was on the St. Charles government put out that it was a thing. I think you have a better chance of winning over those people. But then the question is, do you care about winning over those people? Which I think was your point earlier, right? Do you, like your MLK quote? Maybe those people are the people that you can't care about. And I think sometimes that probably is the answer. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think that Dr. King was disparaging the white moderate as I might have, but I
don't think you did, or that he was. I mean, I think it was a crystal clear. It was, if I can take my own words, it was the electability of their argument. And when he says that's our, I believe the phrase was our greatest enemy.
Yeah.
Is the white moderate the greatest stumbling block? Yeah. I think that's very accurate. I mean, that was how I interpret it. Is that that's accurate?
Because they're not adversarial necessarily, but they are in the way, and they're causing you to stumble.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
that is the strategic question, right?
Mhm.
And so then it is, yeah, is it, do you gain more by telling those people to fuck off because you can't be fucked to coddle them? And I think the answer now, and for me, I think for the first time, is a very obvious, overwhelming yes for the most part.
Yes.
Right now.
Here and now at the very least.
Which I think is the, if I'm picking a reason now, is like so tense, wild, happening. I don't know what word you want to use, but that is why, because I think more people than ever are on that page, and they have not always all been on that page.
Yeah.
You've had a decent amount of people, but there are way more people who, I don't know, maybe this family is just a bunch of racist pieces of shit, but I like to think this family who was racistly scared of black people protesting, or generically scared by people protesting. I don't know. I'm white. I can't tell. But I think I'd like to think those people now are like, yeah, fuck that fucking police precinct.
All
burn
cops.
it down. Because I think more people are on that page. So anyway, I've already taken more time than I probably should on that. But that's my read on the strategicness of it as it is currently.
I'll say, I guess more or less in closing, not that I can necessarily tie it to fighting games just yet, that
we were going to and we didn't.
Yeah, we did our best.
But that's
we got
okay.
distracted. Yeah. Those people that you interacted with, I wasn't there. I can't say fairly. Seem racist?
They being the people in front of me who are scared.
Yeah, those people in front of you that reacted so poorly to the protesters. They do seem racist. And I don't know, and I won't tell you that it was that the racism came from a place of malice or hate.
Sure.
I think that there's some degree, some veneer of plausible deniability in there that they were just afraid.
Ingrained ignorant racism as opposed to malicious racism.
Yeah,
sure.
And that's not their fault, but it is still a bad thing that we'd like to fix. And
do you fix that by scaring them?
I don't know that.
I think right now we do, because they're not scared for the most part now. But
I think to a certain degree and extent, there's no way to make them that family that I am perceiving. There's no way to make those people see it that won't scare them.
Sometimes you gotta gotta wait for people to die.
No, that doesn't work for me. There's so many people that are alive that are still.
Yeah.
And I don't want them all to just be dead. I'd like for some of them to be redeemed.
Well, if I can be a huge bigot for a moment, I have felt, I'm sure it's not equivalent, but I think I can, at least to whatever degree my whiteness will allow me, I can relate to that with regard to religious oppression, which is a thing I've experienced. And it's a thought I've had, but I do think that is a privileged position that I hold, to think that, because I had often thought growing up, like, well, I just need to wait for all these old people to die. It is the same thing. It's like you said, right? Because there's a percentage of these old people who do the shitty things. That's still going to trickle down into their little shitty tendrils and whatever they can grab onto and whoever else they can brainwash. But ultimately, over time, that's going to go away. What I think is interesting and definitely different, and that I can't relate to as much, which is, again, why I think everything now is so effective currently, is that example of the time. There have been, I would say, the last 15 years, there have been, at least from my vantage point, amazing strides in lack or reducing the persecution of non-religious people. The world has become so much more secular with the internet and everything. I think there have been amazing strides. It's fucking wild that there haven't been as many strides with regard to racism, considering
same advantages.
Yeah. Because I really do have, there was a time in my life where I was like, man, religion sure is fucked in all these ways, because I was oppressed in ways that we can go over in another podcast, because I don't want to steal the limelight too much. But just know it's a thing that I experienced. Religion sure is fucked. That shit sure is fucked up. Like, man, that's crazy. It'll probably never change, because that's just how everyone is, and they don't want to think about things and blah, 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 blah. And then one day it was like, hey, man, broadband internet, Reddit, the world is much smaller. People in fucking Egypt are doing crazy revolutions and talking about how they're atheists now because of all this shit with their fucking, whatever monarchical, whatever shit they're fucking dealing with. And like, it's just like, wow, this is crazy. There's this whole secular movement, not just in America, but in the world. And how the fuck didn't that happen with black people? I don't understand. Like, that shit is rooted as fuck, dude. Like, Jesus.
All 50 states are protesting. Japan,
so maybe
Mexico,
that's
Canada.
Now. Maybe that is the now, right? Like maybe that's finally we're another 10 years too late. But like, I do feel like there was like a big secular movement. And I remember thinking that was great. And so maybe now is that time, right? Like maybe now is when it.
I'd like that.
It certainly feels like it. But fuck, it's 2020. Maybe tomorrow Trump fucking nukes China and we go into World War and everybody forgets about it and all progress is lost. I don't know. Like,
hopefully not.
this year's crazy, but it feels like we're in that, right? It feels like we're
really
in.
Nice, yeah.
Do you think we are, like, without being? Oh, that's your autofocus. You need to turn that off. I'll help you later.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you feel like do you think we probably are? Are you not willing to be that optimistic yet?
Whether or not we are, I don't think I'd be able to see it. No, I don't feel that we are, but I recognize that a certain degree of that is the cynicism of, hundreds of years of slavery and then systematic oppression thereafter.
Yeah, it's good to be cynical, in my opinion. I mean,
I think it's depressing to be cynical.
It is definitively, inextricably, but it is. I still think good to be. I don't trust anyone who's not depressed, and I don't trust anyone who's not at least a little bit cynical. I just don't. I don't trust you.
I do think that we have a non-zero chance of making some real structured improvements. I know that LA, having seen just a bunch of atrocities in the last week, is making moves to defund the police department and invest in local Black whatever communities.
Nice.
I know that there's accountability measures that are being brought up, like body cams and stuff like that. People are actually talking about ending qualified immunity, which is hilarious and good, and please. And on top of that, I know that there's good stuff that's happening. I hope it happens. I hope it continues to happen. I hope more happens. We stand a non-zero chance. I'll believe it when I see it, though.
Yep, that sounds like guarded optimism, which is the only good kind for the most part.
Good.
Yeah, you need to you need to be at least a little bit guarded. Otherwise, what the fuck are you doing and expecting?
Right. But before we close out, can I shout out? There's the National Bail Fund.
Shout out all the shout outs. Do them.
Okay, I've got all of 2, so don't worry. It's not that many. There's the National Bail Fund, I think is what it's called. If you look it up, they've got a handful of different like local communities. There's nothing for St. Louis specifically, but Kansas City, Missouri, and a bunch of other cities, major cities, including but not limited to Minneapolis, have different bail funds for protesters who get put in jail to help get them out in a hurry. So if you've got a handful of spare dollars to do that, there's the Arch City Defenders. They are making moves for police accountability in St. Louis. That's the Arch City. They're a righteous organization. Do it.
I said, which would be great. Anyway.
Yes.
Yep.
That would be very good for me specifically as a person of color in St. Louis. So please donate to them. And then I lied. There's a third place. Go to Run the Jewels, their website. Listen to RTJ4 and donate to whatever righteous cause they have. People, I did. I donated $5 when I pre-ordered my CD.
That is a great album. Just to cap off all of the race-related talk for this episode, I did not fucking know the one dude was a white guy. I just assumed. Anyway, I'm racist as fuck. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. I have been Metal Music Man.
And I've been Professor Lex.
And we will catch you guys next time. See ya.